Welcome to Season 2 of the Fraud Files Unleashed, where true fraud investigations meet captivating storytelling. I am Austin, a seasoned fraud fighter with over 8 years of experience in both law enforcement and banking. Join me on a first-hand journey through real cases, offering insights into the dangers and intricacies of fraud. Whether you're a fellow fraud fighter or just eager to learn more about fraud prevention, I invite you to tune in. Brace yourself for a mix of knowledge, humor, and plenty of coffee. Let's uncover the secrets of fraud together. Season 2, Episode 3, The Knotty Fraudster. Sometimes, fraudsters can be real naughty. No, not that kind of naughty, you weirdo. It's Knotty, spelled Knotty. That's just a terrible pun for this fraudster who was a part-time tree trimmer and a full-time thief. This case had me chasing people all over the place. It seemed like there was a new twist and turn every time I made any sort of progress. Most importantly, though, what seemed like a casual fraud investigation actually uncovered a significant fraud operation disguised as a vacation timeshare scam. You know the deal. Let's jump back to 2019-ish, which was when this whole situation started. Ah, that's right. This investigation took place during my favorite time of the year, Christmas. Even work was more fun around this time. Our fraud task force at the Seminole County Sheriff's Office used to host a door decorating contest, and the competition was fierce. I cut out poster board to make a full Snoopy Christmas scene on my office door. Snoopy's iconic red doghouse, strung with lights, was a true masterpiece. But some of my fellow detectives brought in full-sized, Christmas-themed inflatable decor and snowflake strobe lights. I ultimately didn't take first place that year, but I wasn't too upset. Maybe because I was too distracted chasing down this fraudster. I snuck back to my office after consuming some finger foods and dessert, and our inter-office mailman stopped by to deliver some mail. Lucky me, I just received 2 cases transferred from out of state. We would often get cases transferred to us from law enforcement agencies out of state via the mail. And these were usually a random grab bag. Sometimes we would get a good case with some solid leads, and other times we would get hot garbage. We like to call these a soup sandwich, which is a fairly common term thrown around in the military and law enforcement, used primarily to describe a hot mess. So, let's open this envelope and see what I got today. Please no soup sandwich, please no soup sandwich. Both of these cases came from the same agency and had something in common. Both victims reported their credit card numbers were compromised and used to purchase several $1,000s worth of equipment at a local chainsaw store. Buying chainsaws with stolen credit cards wasn't necessarily common in my experience. But I could certainly see how someone could easily sell a chainsaw for some cash to clean the money. Step 1. Let's drive down to the chainsaw store to see if they have any other details or video surveillance. Hey, how's it going today, sir? Any chance you'd be willing to help me pull up some transaction info for a case I'm working? Most people don't tell a detective no, especially when their business is potentially losing money to fraud. The manager, James, was all in and gladly obliged. There were no other customers in the store, so he had plenty of downtime to help. I got receipts which showed me what type of chainsaws were purchased, and James informed me these orders were actually placed online ahead of time. These items were picked up by someone potentially named Jack. And Jack conveniently provided his email address and phone number for both transactions. Real smooth, Jack. The video surveillance was also provided. but it wasn't the best quality. Better than nothing, though. James mentioned that Jack has made purchases at his store in the past, so he's been a fairly regular customer. Interesting. James has never had any issues with chargebacks or stolen cards being used in the past, but he told me he would let me know if he ever saw Jack come back. Thanks for the help, James. After walking outside into the cool breeze of Florida's winter, and by winter I mean 60 degrees, I couldn't help but wonder, was Jack really stupid enough to use his real information? There's no way he's the mastermind behind this, right? My detective's jacket was gently flowing with the wind as I gazed off into the distance, as if I was the latest superhero being unveiled in a Marvel movie, when I exclaimed, "Really? Who's cranking up a chainsaw at a time like this?" Well, I'll spare you the corny catchphrases this time around. Consider yourself lucky. The next morning, I got to work before the sun came out. The majority of the world was asleep, but I was sipping on my fresh cup of Cafe Bustelo as I started digging to see what I could uncover on Jack. Waking up early is not easy, but there's something oh so peaceful about working before the sun rises. I started searching databases and uncovered all sorts of juicy deets. I found out Jack does in fact exist, and his driver license photo matches the subject seen picking up the chainsaws in the video surveillance. Nice. The email address and phone number? Oh yeah, they also had direct links to Jack. As a bonus, Jack was a popular man. He had all sorts of ongoing investigations. Jack was a transient, so most of the cases involved trespass reports and minor drug charges. But he also had several recent fraud cases where he was listed as the primary subject. The deeper I dug, the more I uncovered. The more I uncovered, the more coffee I began to consume. And the more coffee I consumed, the higher the sun began to rise outside my window. I took a moment to stop and enjoy the beauty of God's creation. But it wasn't long before the rest of the office started to fill up. The jingle-jangle of office keys rang down the hallway. The computer keyboards began to click. And my time alone was gone. All hope wasn't lost, though, because I needed some assistance. Another detective in my unit was actively working a case involving Jack. So, we needed to brainstorm to see if our cases overlapped. When I mentioned to my partner in crime that I was working a new case involving Jack utilizing stolen credit cards, he chuckled. My partner's case ended up being completely unrelated, but the overall pattern was clear. Jack was involved with drugs, and it appeared he was using several forms of fraud to get his fix. The best part is, Jack was actually on an ankle monitor during the time that he used my stolen credit cards in my case. I was able to track Jack's location and confirmed it was definitely him inside the chainsaw store. Good luck getting out of this one, Jack. The only problem, though, Jack was transient, so tracking him down now was not going to be easy. Especially because his ankle monitor had been removed. We tried tracking him down for months with no luck. How do you track down someone who's completely off the radar? With patience. We sent subpoenas for his phone and email address information to see if we could track down IP addresses for a generalized area where he was staying. We did gain some progress, because some of the latitude and longitude coordinates indicated he may have been staying in a wooded area behind an apartment complex. But homeless camps move frequently. By the time we went to check, there were no signs of Jack. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. We were playing a cat and mouse game, but we always ended up being a step behind Jack. He had no idea we were stalking him, but he was a slippery fella. That all changed one day. I was pulling up police reports, and looky here. Jack was arrested last night. No way! This is my chance! Where was he caught? At a Days Inn. Shocker. Here's what went down in that classy establishment. To be honest, that Days Inn situation was just a huge mess. So I won't add too much unnecessary confusion here. Essentially, there was a disturbance going on, and it sounded like it involved some prostitution and drugs. Ultimately, the front desk got involved, and the police got called out to sweep up this big mess. Lo and behold, Jack was one of the individuals staying in the hotel room at the time of this cluster, and he had a ton of fraud-related paraphernalia. You know, that good. His backpack was stuffed full of victims' personal information. The source of this information? 2 words. Timeshare scam. Timeshare is 1 word, right? Yeah, of course. That's right. This jack of all trades was sourcing stolen card info and other personal identification information, PII, via a scammy call center he was working with. And they were selling fake timeshares. So, presumably at this point, I'm thinking my victim's card info was likely stolen via this timeshare scam. Jack was arrested for some unrelated charges, but this was my chance to interview him for my ongoing investigation, since I finally had him right where I wanted him, in a jail cell. Before meeting with Jack, I did contact my victims, and sure enough, they both vaguely remembered giving their card info out for a timeshare inquiry several months back. Now the pieces are all coming together. What will Jack have to say about all this evidence? Is he mentally jacked up from all these drugs he's on? Is he really a lumberjack? Will I ever run out of Jack-related puns? Only time will tell. There is nothing quite like the experience of preparing to interview someone who you've been investigating for fraud. Especially when you've been chasing them for months on end, and they are waiting for you while sitting inside a jail cell. It's difficult to put this feeling into words. That energy, it's hard to replicate. Perhaps it's similar to the feeling sports professionals experience when preparing for a playoff game. You all know I am an avid Orlando Magic fan, and our basketball team made it to the playoffs this year. I was fortunate to attend Game 4 in person at the Kia Center, and the feeling was electric. These players put in work for months to prepare and get to this point, and ultimately, nobody ever knows for certain how the game will end. This is somewhat similar to building up for an interview. No matter what you do to prepare for interviewing a fraud suspect, you just never know how that game is going to end. I pumped myself up with my pre-game cup of coffee and some LaCroix before heading over to the jail with a fellow detective. Let's go, baby! We got set up in the interview room. You know, to set the mood. And a corrections officer brought Jack in. Jack was a scrappy and lanky man who certainly appeared to have a rough living situation. He was far from well groomed, judging by his long unkempt hair and beard. And let's be honest, the smell wasn't that great either. Jack was a man of few words in the beginning, but he quickly turned into a jack-in-the-box when we pressed for more information and dropped our heavy evidence on him. The first story he gave us involving the purchase of these chainsaws using stolen credit cards was just a complete lie. He blabbered on about some nonsense involving a client needing a tree chopped down, and they bought the chainsaws for him to use. He also claimed he never even went inside of the chainsaw store. What a naughty fraudster. He wasn't a lumberjack at all. As I showed him the ankle monitor tracking, video surveillance, and the email and phone number associated with the transaction, Jack began to scramble. The more we wound him up, the closer he got to popping with energy. Jack started running out of lies to give, and his anger began to grow the longer we spoke with him. He eventually admitted to his involvement with my credit card fraud case, but it was a painful process. This was really all I needed from my standpoint. But then he decided to start throwing other people under the bus. Sometimes you get surprised real good when that jack-in-the-box pops. Man, I just gotta stop these jack-in-the-box puns. Anyways, he did admit to working at this scammy call center, but he started snitching on the owner behind the whole operation. Thanks, Jack. I went in this interview just looking for a W, and now I'm leaving with some bonus points. At the end of the day, Jack got some extra felony charges dropped on him for his fraudulent activity associated with my investigation. And sadly, he was stuck in jail a bit longer than he had first anticipated. Jack had all sorts of other charges dropped on him while he sat in jail. He was a busy man. His addiction to meth and heroin caused him to go through great lengths to pay for his habits. You can't help but feel bad for Jack. I never enjoyed seeing anyone struggle with drug addiction, especially when they used fraud to fund it. Telling someone to just stop taking drugs doesn't work. I wish it was that easy, but the power of addiction is strong. Jack was able to sober up and get the help he needed while he was in jail. Did he ever go back to taking drugs? I don't know. I really hope not. If you are struggling with addiction or know someone who is, call 988. It's okay to ask for help. And there you have it, fraud fighters. Being a fraudster is naughty, but more importantly, some people do fraud to cover the costs of their drug addiction. Fraudsters are still people, and they deserve to get the help they need. Join us next time as we delve into the world of financial intrigue, exposing the tricks of the trade while sharing a laugh or two. Remember, not all heroes wear capes, some wear accountant badges and detective hats. This podcast is presented by Fraud Warfare. If you are interested in supporting us through promoted ads, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Please consider sharing this episode with a friend or family member, and be sure to leave us a review on your podcasting platform of choice. You can also support us financially through our buymeacoffee.com/fraud warfare page. 100% of these funds go towards improving the quality of our podcast, and of course some coffee. And thanks for listening.